her teacher is Guru. Gurvi. Gurvi. It's in the Bhagavatam, 3rd canto. I'm not your teacher. I don't know if I want to. I'm not sure if I want to know what it is that you've learned. Right. That's what I figured. It was like that. Learn what not to do. Gopal said he liked having me here because I have some similarities with him. So when he sees how awful I am, then he can be more introspective about his own faults. Oh. Is broadcasting working? Is it good enough that the internet's good enough that it's actually broadcasting? Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Balabha Girivaradari. Gopi Jana Balabha Girivaradari. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Balabha Girivaradari. Gopi Jana Balabha Girivaradari. Yasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Jasodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Yamuna Tiravanachari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Asatara Satashri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Shai Mukunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Mathura Dham ki jai, Navadvip Mayapur Dham ki jai, Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Gangamaya Jamuna Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Tulsi Maharani ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nivasesa Sunyavadi Paska Chade Satarane. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatambitam Samsajivam Sadvoitam Sadvadutam Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Vanchakalpachubhyascha. Keep us in the Vivata Patitanam Pavanevya Vaishnavevi Namo Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So it is November 23rd, 2020, and we're in Hillsborough. Today's the birthday of your disciple Jayadvaita. Today's the birthday of your disciple Jayadvaita. Yeah, who was born here. So yeah, we're not going to talk about that. Somehow right? Oh, okay. It's a reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 22, Text 1. Shri Sukha Uvacha Hemante Partame Masi Nandavraja Kumarika Chur Havishyam Bhunjana Kachayan Yarchana Vratam. Please chant. November 23rd, 2020 in Hillsborough, North Carolina, Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 22, Text 1. Shri Sukha Uvacha. Shri Sukadev Goswami said, Hemante, during the winter, Pratame, in the first, Masi, month, Nandavraja, of the cowherd village of Nanda Maharaja. Kamari Kaha, the unmarried young girls, Churuhu, performed Havishyam, unseasoned khichdi, Bunjanaha, subsisting on, Katayani, of the goddess Katayani, Archana Vratam, the vow of worship. Translation. Sukadev Goswami said, during the first month of the winter season, the young unmarried girls of Gokula observed the vow of worshipping goddess Katyayani. For the entire month, they ate only unspiced khichdi. Purport, BBT purport. The word Hemante refers to the month of Magashisha, from approximately the middle of November to the middle of December, according to the Western calendar. Actually, the winter season, there's 2 parts of the winter season. Hemanta is the first part, and then I think it's Garisha is the second part. So Garisha is also the dewy or the foggy season. So it's not our winter. They divide winter into 2 parts. In chapter 22 of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Srila Prabhupada comments that the gopis, quote, first hate havishyama, a kind of food prepared by boiling together mung dal and rice without any spices or turmeric. According to Vedic injunction, this kind of food is recommended to purify the body before one enacts a ritualistic ceremony. Sri Stuk Uvacha Himante Partame Masi Nandavraja Kumarikaha Cherar Havishyam Punjanaha Kachayan Yarchana Vratam. Sukadev Goswami said, during the first month of the winter season, the young unmarried girls of Gokula observed the vow of worshipping goddess Kachayani. For the entire month, they ate only unspiced khichdi. So I wanted to also go to Krishna book. So Prabhupada says, according to Vedic civilization, unmarried girls from 10 to 14 years of age are supposed to worship either Lord Shiva or goddess Durga in order to get a nice husband. But the unmarried girls of Vrindavana were already attracted by the beauty of Krishna. They were, however, engaged in the worship of goddess Durga in the beginning of the Hemanta season, just prior to the winter season. The first month of Hemanta is Agrayana. So each season has 2 months. October, November. So Prabhupada is saying it's October, November, not November, December. It's the first month of Hemanta. So each, as I said, each season has 2 months, so they did this for 1 month. And at that time, all the unmarried gopis of Vrindavana began to worship goddess Durga with a vow. And here the rest of it was from the, was already quoted in the BBT purport. So I thought I'd focus primarily on the Archana Vratam. So Archana means worship and Vrata means vow, taking a vow of worship. And this concept of devotees taking some kind of vow of worship is, of course, mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna defines what is a Mahatma. Anybody know that verse? And so Krishna is there saying the Mahatma is one who's taken shelter under the internal potency. Now these gopis are all definitely under the shelter of the internal potency. One could say they're all expansions of the internal potency. And then what does one do when one is a great soul under the shelter of the internal potency? The next verse in the Bhagavad Gita, which is 9:14. Samkirtayantomam yatanchascha dridavrataha namayantastamam bhakja nityayukta upastite. So there we have dridavrataha, and drida means very, very great, very strong, a very strong vow. Like we read about Raghunath Das Goswami, that his vows, his austerities were like lines in stone. Yes, they couldn't be erased. It's a very strong vow. And I thought before we look at the vows of the devotees, we'd first look at Krishna's promises. Krishna also takes vows. This is a reciprocal relationship we're having with the Lord. It's not that just the devotee surrenders and Krishna just takes everything from them like some kind of exploitive dictator who just takes everything. Now, Krishna also makes vows to his devotees. So Krishna makes vows to his devotees makes vows to him, and then lastly, I want to look specifically at these gopis and their vow to Katyayani. So what are the promises that the Lord makes to his devotees? And what does that mean? My devotee will never perish. That's quite a vow, isn't it? Krishna is saying he will always protect his devotee. He'll always give us protection. Is there anyone who can make such a promise other than Krishna? Who else? You can? Okay. Well, Arjuna. Well, okay. Arjuna made the promise. Yes. But Arjuna can't make that promise independent of Krishna. Right? Arjuna did make that promise, actually, to one Brahmana, didn't he? I'll always protect your children. And was Arjuna able to do that on his own? No. Right? He said, I'll enter into the fire. Didn't he say, I'll enter into the fire if I can't protect your children? And he couldn't. He went to all the planets of the universe to try to find this child. He couldn't prevent the child from being taken away, and he couldn't find the child anywhere. And it was only when Krishna took him beyond the universe that he was able to find the child. I was just reading in Bhagavatam about Lord Shiva, how the Mayadanava made these 3 flying cities. I know Sadaputa Prabhu in his book Alien Identities talks about this, the 3 flying cities of the demons. And Lord Shiva destroyed all of them. And then what happened? Mayadanava just took all the dead demon bodies and stuck them in a well of nectar and brought them back to life. And Lord Shiva was defeated. Lord Shiva wasn't able to protect the demigods. It was only when Vishnu and Brahma took the form of a cow and a calf and drank all the well of nectar, and Mayadanava, having some aspects of Vedic civilization, wasn't going to stop a cow and a calf from drinking his well of nectar. He's like, let the cow do what she wants. Not like our modern demons who are eating the cows and etc. And then Lord Shiva was able to destroy the residences of the demons. But only Krishna can give this. And think about this, right? We're always scared about some kind of harm, isn't it? We're constantly living in fear of some kind of harm. We're very fragile beings. Our bodies are extremely fragile. Isn't it a fact? Our minds are extremely fragile. A person's mind can snap very easily, or we can get one stroke and we lose everything, or to get dementia, whatever. Our bodies are fragile. Our minds are fragile. All of our relationships are very fragile. Our money is very fragile, isn't it? Our buildings, yes. None of these things, they're all fallible soldiers. Our body's a fallible soldier. Our mind is a fallible soldier. Our family and friends, society, friendship and love, they're all fallible soldiers. Our possessions, our buildings, our cars, our computers, they're all fallible soldiers. But Krishna says, I will protect. What's some other vows Krishna makes for his devotees? Some other... Oh. Wow. That one, 9:30, Apichetsu Characharo, even if you commit abominable activities, you're still my devotee. I still consider you a saintly person. I mean, that's actually completely extraordinary. It's like the story I read once of this police chief whose son was a convicted serial killer, and he'd visit him in prison and say, I'm glad you're in prison, but I still love you. You're still my son. What other vows does Krishna make for his devotees? Sarva dharman prityadyama mekam sharanam vrajaham tam sarva papebhyo mokshishami masuchad. So this is another reassurance from fear, another protection. Masuchad, don't worry, don't fear. Actually, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna kind of, not exactly at the beginning, but he pretty much starts with give up fear and ends with give up fear. I'll protect you, don't worry. And I'll relieve you of all your sinful reactions. What other promises does Krishna make his devotees? Yaitamam prachantante, I will reciprocate with you. As you surrender, I'll reciprocate. Says the devotee is never lost to him. Krishna says, he is never lost to me, and I am never lost to him. He says that if we just remember, right, janma karma jame divyam, evam yoveti tattvita tvarton deham punar janma naitimam eti sorjuna. That if you just know the divyam, the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities, you don't have to take another birth in this world. Yes? He also says, I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death. Any other promises Krishna's making? Ahamagana jamtamaha nasayam yatmabhavosto gyana dipena bhashvata, that I will enlighten your heart with transcendental knowledge. About yogam shema va amyaham. Right? Who is that doubted that? Who is it that doubted yogakshema vadamyaham? It was one Brahmana, he doubted. Yes, he said, I don't think Krishna is personally going to provide what I lack and carry what I have. And so he crossed that out in the Bhagavad Gita. And then later Krishna Balaram came with whip marks on their back from where this devotee had crossed this out. And they brought all this food for the devotee's wife. And she told her, your husband has beaten us. And he could understand that Krishna was personally supplying for the devotee. So what are these promises that Krishna is making for us? Yes? He's saying that if we meditate on him, we're just about to start the study of chapter 6 in Bhakti Shastri, that one will see the pure mind, one will see the self by the pure mind, one will relish and rejoice in the self, then one will be never shaken from the truth, even in the greatest difficulties. This indeed is freedom from all miseries caused by material contact. So he's promising to take away all of our sinful reactions, to relieve us of all miseries, to take us back home, back to Godhead, from which we never need to return to this world, to reciprocate with us accordingly, to protect us in all circumstances. These are the vows that Krishna makes to his devotees. So, when I really meditated on this, it was actually kind of an emotional thing, what Krishna is promising. If we think about some ordinary exchange of vows, like at a wedding, it's kind of equal, isn't it? What the two partners promise to each other. But how can we equal what Krishna promises to us? Yes, the other day you were reading about Krishna's friend, the cloud. Almost the exact verse in chapter 21 and chapter 35. And the cloud, as Krishna's friend, is trying to satisfy the desires of Krishna. But what can I give to Krishna? What vow can I make? And I was thinking of this this verse I believe it's by Rupa Goswami. Bhaktivinoda quotes it in his Bhajana Rahasya as part of the daily puja. Aham apapranam alayaswakta sarana agatis chattato nato bhavanto me paragatihi. O your lordships, I am certainly the abode of many offenses, and I am completely devoid of any devotional practices. I don't have any other shelter, therefore I regard you as my ultimate goal. So if we see ourselves with humility, with honesty, then we'll see that I don't do anything with devotion. Like even Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I don't have a drop of love for Krishna, or how would I be able to live in his absence? If we see that, we were reading in Manashiksha, verse 6, about how we fool ourselves, that we think we're doing so much service, but our real motives are different. Our motives are profit, adoration, distinction, or maybe our motive is just to get some nice prasadam to eat and a warm place to sleep. We have all different kinds of motives rather than to please Krishna. And therefore, the vows we take in his service may be vows just, the letter of the law, not the spirit of the law. And we see even then, just honestly, that I don't know what the percentage is. I don't know if, Burke Rochford did a survey, but I don't know if we have some real solid sociological data. But we just know informally, anecdotally, that not everybody who takes first initiation keeps their vows. We know that. So many devotees, they say, no, I don't chant my rounds anymore. It's just a burden. Or, I try to chant here and there. And, oh, did you chant any today? Oh, no, I didn't get to it. Or, this is very, it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon. People, and it's interesting. I remember I was at a program once in Europe. I'm trying to remember exactly where. And I met one lady who said, yeah, I joined ISKCON for a while, and I took initiation and got a name, checked it out for a while. And I thought, wow, she was thinking of it as, something to just try, even taking initiation. Well, I'll try that. Tried it for a year. And I was kind of shocked. I was like, wow, you didn't take it as a lifetime vow. But even those of us who may be very proud, I've always chanted my 16 rounds and my Gayatris, and I've always followed the regulative principles, and I always read Srila Prabhupada's books. Again, if we look into our heart, have I always chanted with attention? Have I always chanted with love? Have I even given up the subtle forms of the regulative principles? Do I try to chant without offense? What's my mood? I mean, at least I can say for myself, I don't think on that level I've kept anything. I think this statement that Bhaktivinoda quotes, I've never done any devotional. I don't have any sadhana. I don't have any devotion. I really can't offer you, Krishna, any vow in return. But the devotees tried to do that. Still, we try. And the devotees take sometimes temporary vows. Sometimes devotees take vows of like 3 days or a week. Bhaktivinoda actually writes about this, that one can take a vow for 3 days, and then I think he says for a month, and then 3 months. So I had the dharma of the vanaprastha actually is tapasya, and I went for many, many years regularly taking different vows. And I found that having that system, following Bhaktivinoda, was very helpful, like to take a vow for 3 days, and then I would evaluate it. Well, how did I do? Was I able to keep the vow? Maybe I should adjust it, then take a vow for a week, and then evaluate it, and then maybe adjust that, then take a vow for 2 weeks and adjust that. And some vows I kept for many years. Anyway, there was one vow I kept for 3 years, and then I was ordered by 2 devotees to stop following that vow. Don't follow that vow anymore. And I missed it ever since. It was a very nice vow. So there's all different temporary vows that devotees may take. Devotees may take vows just for Ekadasi. They're going to chant extra rounds, or I think you said you don't look at the news on Ekadasi. So people may take some vows like that. Or people may take a vow, I'm going to chant my 16 rounds before I do this or that or the other thing, Or people may take a vow for a month, like here the unmarried gopis are taking a vow for a month. So people may take a vow for Kartik, and people take vows for Purushottam Mas. And then there are the lifetime vows, right? It's interesting in the research that we've been doing in the Shastric Advisory Council into the Brahma Gayatri mantra. So we were asked by the GBC to look at this mantra in the Gaudiya Sampradaya as a whole. We also looked to some extent the Sri Sampradaya. And it turns out that this taking of lifetime vows at the time of initiation as a general thing for all disciples who all take the same lifetime vows is unique to A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We don't find this in any other branch of the Gaudiya Sampradaya. Now, we do find groups that are kind of parallel to ISKCON that had some beginnings in ISKCON. There are a number of groups where the leader is used to be an ISKCON member or had some association with ISKCON. They may also have disciples take vows at the time of initiation. But generally that is not done. And if people take vows, it's on an individual basis, and it's not done in connection with Diksha. So I thought that was very interesting. But there are also lifetime vows, like we have, the vow of brahmacharya can be taken for 3 days. It can be taken until one finishes one's studies, or it can be taken for life. And like Bhishma took this great vow of brahmacharya for life. And we can't, there's no possibility that we can take any vow that is equivalent to Krishna's vows to us. It's just not possible. What he's promising us and what I'm promising him, it's not even in the same universe. I'll protect you, I'll take you out of the ocean of birth and death. All right, I'll be a vegetarian. It's like, what are we talking about here? Or even, I'll worship you every day. What am I giving you? Some incense, a lamp, a flower? What am I giving you? I mean, it's the meaning of it. So what does it mean for the devotees to take these vows? Why did the devotees take these vows? It's at least indicative of some sincerity, yeah? Some gratitude, some, Prabhupada often uses this word sincere. If we try to talk about what's sincere, we can say the first thing is you show up, you're there, you're dependable, you're reliable. Yeah, the first measure of sincerity is showing up. Somebody signs up for a cooking class and they never show up. So, or paying the fee or something. So we take these vows as some measure of sincerity. Yeah? And we should try. I know it's Kali Yuga, and I know we're just human beings in Kali Yuga, and, we're lucky as human beings in Kali Yuga if we can do swalpa, just a little bit of bhakti. That's another thing Krishna says. You do just a little bit of bhakti, you never lose it. So I know it's very hard in Kali Yuga for anybody to keep any kind of vows, but at least we should make it something serious, that I promise this to my spiritual master, I promise this in front of the fire, I promise this to the Lord. Let me at least keep these vows. Even sometimes it's hard, sometimes it's easy, sometimes maybe I don't keep them very well, but let me at least keep these vows. A little reciprocation with Krishna, something. Let me try to do something for Krishna, something for my spiritual master. Again, I know it's hard. We're all, we have human bodies which are not very elevated. We're on the lowest of the middle planetary systems. We're especially Mandasu Manda Matayo in Kali Yuga. It's really astonishing if we can do anything. I was just reading in the Bhagavatam in the 7th canto, I think it's chapter 11, about the Varnas. And Prabhupada's talking about people outside the Varnas who have behavior that's not considered sinful among themselves, and therefore they don't get sinful reaction for it. It was really interesting. Like drinking wine and having illicit behavior. And said that because these people don't consider it sinful among themselves, it's not considered sinful. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So, I know that we're all very unqualified. I mean, it's one way I deal with my own feelings of guilt and shame with how little I do for Srila Prabhupada. And then I just say, Urmila, you're a human being in Kali Yuga. So we're all human beings in Kali Yuga. At least as far as I know, everybody here is a human being. At the same time, at least we can do that. No illicit sex, no intoxication, no meat eating, no gambling, minimum of 16 rounds trying to avoid the offense. And those of us who've taken Gayatri Diksha, to chant the Gayatri 3 times a day at the proper time with proper meditation. At least we can try to do that. And to work on getting rid of the offenses on chanting, especially not to offend the devotees. I know I read that Burjan Prabhu said that one time he decided to take a vow in Kartik that he wouldn't criticize anybody during the whole of Kartik, and after a few days he realized he wasn't able to maintain the vow. So as I have a bit of a competitive spirit, so one Kartik and I was in Govardhan, I said, I'm going to take that vow. And all that happened is constantly Krishna in the heart was informing me of all the critical thoughts I was having. So it was like he was flagging them. You understand? So all day long, Krishna was flagging, that was a critical thought, 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 that was a critical thought. And after about 10 days, I was exhausted. And I'm like, okay, I'll take this vow later on in my spiritual life. I give up. But at least we can do our best to work towards that. And if there's something that we're really struggling with, if there's some area of our spiritual life, something we're struggling to do or something we're struggling not to do, then we can also try short-term vows. Well, I'll do this for a day, or I'll do it or I won't do this for a day, or I'll minimize it, or I'll do it for 3 days, and then I really like Bhaktivinoda's program like that as a way to get rid of bad habits or a way to take up good habits. And it's important that the vows we take, Prabhupada in Nectar Devotion, when he talks about over-endeavoring, he said not to take up spiritual practices that you can't maintain. So this is also very important, that we don't want to take a vow, I'm going to chant 120 rounds a day and I'm going to read Prabhupada's books for 6 hours a day, and then we have no time to sleep and we can't maintain it. So to take on things that we can maintain. It's more important to be steady than to be have some big fireworks and then go out. So I wanted to look a little bit at this specific vow of the gopis, of the unmarried gopis. So both Sanatana Goswami and Jiva Goswami really focus on the fact that the gopis taking this vow are the unmarried gopis, and they say in the previous chapter the focus was on the married gopis. And what do you think Jiva Goswami talks about in his commentary about unmarried versus married gopis? It's a long-standing controversy. So Jiva Goswami says all the gopis are married to Krishna. Jiva Goswami does not accept the concept that some of the gopis are married to somebody else. And it's a point of departure between Jiva Goswami and our other Gaudiya acharyas. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there's in the Ujjwala Nilamani, toward the beginning, there's long commentaries by Jiva Goswami and Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, where Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is trying to hermeneutically deal with Jiva Goswami's assertions that all of the gopis are actually Krishna's wives. So in Jiva Goswami's commentary on today's verse, which is quite long, and I decided not to read the commentary, but I would refer you to it, he gives his arguments as to why all the gopis are married to Krishna. And so this vow of the unmarried gopis to have Krishna as their husband is a universal thing. And then he says, well, how do we adjust the fact that some of the gopis do appear to be married? And he just says those are illusory marriages with some kind of expansion, and he gives evidence for that, but that actually they're all just married to Krishna. So this is, of course, Jiva Goswami had a very specific reason for preaching like that, because at that time, there was a lot of licentiousness done by persons in the name of following Gaudiya Vaishnavism. And so Jiva Goswami wanted to kind of cut out the foundation of what these people were doing. But it is quite interesting, his arguments, and again, we don't have time today. And I decided, should I focus that today or not? I decided not to. But there's, if you read Jiva Goswami's commentary, you'll see how he gives his hermeneutic reasons for his conclusion, and if you go to Ujjwala Nilamani, you see the hermeneutics given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Jiva Goswami as to their different positions. And it's interesting, the food that they eat, which Srila Prabhupada describes as mung dal and rice without turmeric or spices, Sanatana Goswami describes as being made of milk, yogurt, and grains that can be harvested in the Hemanta season. So I already talked a little bit about the season, and I was also tempted to have another class about the 6 seasons of Vrindavan. But it's 2 lunar months that occur in the early winter. And then there's another 2 lunar months that occur in late winter. And in each of the seasons, there's certain activities that go on. And these seasons exist simultaneously in the spiritual world. So as Krishna travels through the forest, yesterday Krishna Priya, when she was talking about Gopastami, I was really struck with the fact that as Krishna's family was moving from one part of Vrindavan to another, how they were going through the 12 forests. And how Krishna likes to visit each of the 12 forests, Bahulavan and Talavan and so forth. But there's also 6 seasonal forests. And then there's also another 3 seasonal forests that combine seasons. Like there's a forest that combines the early winter season and the late winter season. And then there's a forest where you can find all 6 seasons simultaneously. Right? So vows should also be taken according to the season. So we see with the gopis, the vows are taken according to our person. The gopis are not married. Right? Kanya, they're maidens. So therefore they're taking a vow to marry Krishna. So one should take vows according to one's particular circumstance. Like a grahasta shouldn't take the same kind of vows as a sannyasi. Right? If a grahasta takes a vow, I'm not going to talk to any women for a month, so his wife might not be very happy. Or if he has any daughters, they might not be very happy. Right? It wouldn't be appropriate. What's an appropriate vow for a brahmachari is not necessarily an appropriate vow for a vanaprastha. So what's appropriate vow depends on our particular circumstance. Then they took a vow according to the season. So different vows may be appropriate at different times. Just like that vow I had for 3 years. Then I was told by 2 devotees who I highly respect, that was appropriate at that time, but now it's no longer an appropriate vow. You should give it up. So different vows are appropriate at different times. And we also see that a lot of vows involve food. Like the 4 stages of sannyas have to do a lot with food, isn't it? Where you get your food. Isn't that interesting? Right? The vows during Chaturmasya, when the traveling preachers can't travel, are very connected with food. With a lot of our festival days, a lot of our vows are again connected with food. I find that of great interest. So many times vows are connected with food. Like I've taken vows, I'm not going to eat any desserts or sweets for a certain amount of time. So vows are connected with who we are and who we are at this moment, who we are in our particular stage of advancement, who we are in our ashram, who we are in our varna, who we are in our service. Our vows are often connected with food or some kind of sensory satisfaction. Our vows are often connected with time. And our vows all have a particular deity. So here the deities of the gopi, who's the deity that they're worshiping? Katyayani. And Srila Prabhupada identifies her in Krishna book with Durga. Sanatana Goswami identifies her with Parvati. You could say it's the same person, but different mood. Parvati has a little different mood than when she's Durga. And Jiva Goswami calls her Vaishnavi. Yes, he calls her Vaishnavi. So a particular deity that one is worshiping. One is not necessarily always directing one's vows at Krishna. One may be directing one's vows at one's guru. Or one may be directing one's vows at a particular saintly person. One may be trying to please Rupa Goswami or Raghunath, like when we were compiling Manashiksha. My view was very much to please Raghunath Das Goswami and Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Right? We've in the Radha Seva project, we've done restoration work at different places, and we're often trying to please the particular personality that's associated with that place. And then there's the sankalpa of the vow. What do you want to achieve? So what is their sankalpa? They want to get married to Krishna. They want Krishna as their, and no one else. One-pointed, yes, it's one-pointed vow. So we have to have a sankalpa. Right, when we were studying in Bhakti Shastri, and the students were asking, well, it seems that if you do this, you go to the heavenly planets. It seems if you do this, you go to the Brahman. It also seems if you do this, you go back to Godhead. And I said, well, a lot of it depends on your sankalpa. What are you doing it for? Are you putting money in the donation box so that, you'll be rich in the future? Or are you putting the money in the donation box because you want to please Krishna? Are you putting money in the donation box so you'll be free from your cancer? Well, what's your sankalpa? Yetamam prapadyante. Just like I like to give that example of Ramdas Vilas, who was traveling with Raghunath Bhatta and chanting Ram, 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 Ram. But his sankalpa was merging, and therefore Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't pay him very much attention. So if we could live each day with a deep gratitude, it's hard to maintain this, but with a deep gratitude of the vows that Krishna is making to me. And these aren't one-day vows, 3-day vows, 1-month vows, 1-lifetime vows. They're eternal vows. The vows that Krishna is making to me eternally. And what vows am I making to him? That I may make for a day, I might make it for a week, or even one little puny spot life, as Prabhupada calls it. And then to make vows that are appropriate, that I can keep, that are meaningful to me, with proper mentality. And then to do my level best as a fallen human being in Kali Yuga to keep them. So thank you. Questions, comments? Yes, Maharaj. Interesting. So Maharaj is saying in the Ramanuja Sampradaya, you can't take vows as a sannyasi unless you have a Sagittarius lagna, unless Sagittarius rising. Interesting. It's interesting also that they're isolating just the lagna. I would think that they'd also want to look at the position of Saturn. They take that as most important. Interesting. Again, I would think that they'd also look at the moon lagna,